of all, we'd like to thank the Scheiner Shul for hosting us, and obviously Binyamin and Moshe for arranging this year. If anyone needs information about the Shiur, please be in contact with him. If anyone wants to donate some Likutei Moharans, because there's going to be thousands of people here soon, so they're welcome to also donate. Raviana is here. We could start. So this is very, very exciting. Very exciting to actually be zeicha to start Likutei Moharan. It's an unbelievable endeavor. I remember many years ago, Rav Moshe Weinberger gave a shiur on Chassidus. He would go through each of the Hasidic masters for a while, and then he came after many years. He came to Likutei Moharan to Rav Nachman, and he says, I remember in the first year he said, "Hinni loy muchen v'loy mezuman." Like, we're not ready. There's no way we'll ever be ready for learning Likutei Moharan. But that said and done, we're going to jump right into the Rebbe's Sefer, to Likutei Moharan, and it's an amazing Sefer. It starts off even with just a little poetic poem here. Thank you, Hashem, for giving us the Torah. A bunch of the Torahs in the beginning are based on Rabbi Bar Rachana, these esoteric Gemaras, I think in Bava Basra, that speak about wild stories, and Nachman shows how each of the things also alludes to inyanim that we can work on in life. One thing that's interesting, even just to note before we even start, that the Sefer Likutei Moharan, the first version, it's a unique Sefer in Chassidus, because it was actually written in the times of Reb Nachman. A lot of Sfarim from Hasidic masters were written after they were passed on by their Talmidim. The first Chelik, for sure, was written in 1808, I think, and Reb Nachman was still alive. He saw the Sefer, he said it's good. He had the stempel from the Rebbe himself. But the first time that it was actually bound, it was put together in the form of a book. Reb Nassan, who was Reb Nachman's main Talmud, came over to him and showed the Rebbe the book, the Sefer Likutei Moharan. The Rebbe was flying in seventh heaven, and he was unbelievable. And they record the day as Chaf Gimel Sivan. So, okay, it sounds like a nice random day in the springtime. But Chaf Gimel Sivan, if you know the Megillas Esther, is actually the day that after the whole Gezerah of Achashverosh was annulled, which was in Nisan by Pesach time. So then it says only 3 months later they were able to write a new Gezerah that the Yidden were allowed to go and fight against their enemies. And that was, if you see in the Megillah, it's a straight up pasuk, 23rd of Sivan. So just interesting to note that the Sefer was bound then, and maybe like that also it's a question that the Mepharshim even deal with, why did it take 3 months? What happened in between? I don't have a clear answer, but maybe the Sefer also was a fight, meaning the Gezerah wasn't annulled. There was still going to be Klippas, there's still going to be Achashverosh, there's still going to be Goyim, but with the new Gezerah, with the Sefer also, maybe we have a lot of tools to fight against the Yetzer Hara. With that introduction of the introduction, we're going to start the Torahs in Likutei Moharan. Many Torahs in Likutei Moharan start off with a pasuk, and the pasuk is not necessarily connected to the inyan that he's speaking about. It's not like he's going to start saying the pasuk and he give a pirush in the pasuk. Rather, he quotes the pasuk and then he goes through a whole long, unique and interpretation of things, and then at the end he goes and explains in these words of the pasukim how it's alluded to all the inyanim that he was speaking about. Derech Agav, a personal thing. I haven't had many dreams of Reb Nachman, but I had one that was very interesting, and I did not see his face, so I cannot paint you a picture of Reb Nachman's face. But it was an interesting dream that I think has it's very pertinent. It's not crazy, it's just pertinent. That I remember I was there and the Rebbe said, do you know why it says a pasuk in the beginning of every Torah in the Likutei Moharan? I said, no. He said, because after you learn the Torah and you fit the whole inyan into the words, so that you can chazer that whole inyan in just 1 second. After you know the Torah, you can say, Ashrei Tamim Yadorach Halachem Torah Hashem, chazer that Torah. Let's go to the next Torah. Vayom Hashem, you could chazer the half of Likutei Moharan in 10 minutes. So it was interesting to note that obviously all of the Torah is like that. The Gemara says that the Torah is niknas b'simanim, that if you make simanim, that's the only way you could connect yourself back to the Torah and remember a voluminous amount of things. But that was interesting to note that, maybe as we're starting the pasuk, that this is something that helps us to understand and to remember the Likutei Moharan. So the Rebbe starts off with the pasuk Ashrei Tmimei Darcha Hochem Nisaras Hashem. It's one of the first psukim, if not the first pasuk in Kuf Yud Tes, where it says, "Praiseworthy is he who goes on a simple path, who walks and goes in the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu." And the Rebbe starts, "Da Ki al Yedei HaTorah." Through the Torah, niskablim kol tefillos v'chol hakashos, all of our tefillos and our beseechings for HaKadosh Baruch Hu are niskabel, are accepted. She'anu mevakshin u'nispalim, that we ask and we ask to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So right away, just to know that when Reb Nachman was alive, it was the early days of Hasidus. We're talking about when he was started to teach these Torahs in the late 1700s. And the Baal Shem Tov just passed away, I think, in 1760. And it was the early days of Hasidus, and there was a lot of wildness going on. There was Hasidim that were dancing all day, and there was Misnagdim that were throwing things at them. I don't think we even have such a strong base nowadays. As much as there's Hasidim and Misnagdim, we're all big Shalom, Baruch Hashem, today, in Shalom, in peace. But in those days, it was very kitzoni, it was very extreme. And they asked Reb Nachman, the Hasidim are always saying, daven, daven, daven. And the Litvaks are always saying, no, learn, learn, learn. So what does the Rebbe hold the right path? And the Rebbe just answered, davening, learning, and davening. Daven, learn, and daven. And if you go through the whole Likutei Moharan, which is very, very advisable to do before you start jumping into conclusions about what Reb Nachman's about, because it's very easy to say that he's about X, Y, and Z, but you have to get the whole corpus of what he's saying to understand really what he really means. You see that the whole time Reb Nachman is just back and forth, the Torah and Tefillah and everything. People ask me, he's like, what is Breslov about? Give me a quick snippet. It's about Simcha, right? It's about Hisbodus, right? I say, what is Judaism about? Yiddishkeit, what's it about? It's about, what is it? It's about everything. Every facet of life, every part of your being is incorporated in Judaism. That's what Yiddishkeit is. And Reb Nachman also, he covers everything, he touches on everything. So it's not Torah, it's not Tefillah, it's not Hisbodus, it's everything. But over here, it's very unique because these Torahs are not written in a chronological order. Very interesting in Breslov is that Reb Nosson, already in 1802, 1803, recorded almost every single thing that the Rebbe said, which was unique for Hasidim. A lot of times you have Noam Elimelech, we don't know where it was said, when it was said, we just have a sefer, Baruch Hashem. But in Breslov, he recorded when it was said, what was happening, when it was said. He had everything recorded. And you could see from his writings that it's not written in chronological order. It's not like a timeline. First week that I was by the Rebbe, he said Torah Aleph and then Torah Bais. It's totally out of whack. So Reb Nosson put it in his order. And from the fact that he started it off with Ki al Yedei HaTorah Niskablim Kol HaTefillos, he was bramish bringing it down to the essence of this unity of yes, we're here to daven a lot, and we're here to put all our strengths in tefillah. We're also here to put all our strengths in Torah, and only through Torah will the tefillah go up. And that's about mamish the way he starts off Likutei Moharan, which is obviously the words that Reb Nachman said, but put into the order of that Reb Nosson felt to stress. So he says over here that through Torah, that's how our tefillos and our bakashos come to be received, which is, I think, unique that he also says tefillos and bakashos. Another thing to know in Likutei Moharan, there are certain Torahs that says, like there's Torah Bais, you'll see if you turn a page, it says Lashon Rabbeinu Zal. So Lashon Rabbeinu Zal, these type of Torahs were said from Reb Nachman, but afterwards he took the manuscript and mamish would correct every single word. Like he would make sure that every word was exactly the way he wanted it. So those are Lashon Rabbeinu Zal. Those Torahs, they say you could be Medayik like mamish, like a Rishon. You could be Medayik on every letter and every word. The Torah did not. He saw it and he gave his stempel. But even so, there's a lot to be learned from every, even double Lashon that the Rebbe uses. And I think that in a certain sense, just even if it's not 100% what they meant, as there's a famous line that one of the Hasidim came to Reb Nachman after he said a Torah, and he started making all sorts of drushes. The Rebbe, tefillah and bakasha, tefillah means this, bakasha means that, and the Rebbe just smiled and he said, they are beautiful. He said, you could twist my Torahs this way and that way, make up, vertlach, do it out, but don't change one halach in Shulchan Aruch. Don't mess with Shulchan Aruch. And that was another huge klal that came out in Breslov ad Hayom Hazeh, where Baruch Hashem here in in Scheiner is the last week that it's a few days before Nisan. The Olam was screaming, "Nu Kaddish, no Tachnen." The other Olam was screaming, "We stay in halacha." So in Breslov they go very much by the halacha. They still till this day stick by the Shulchan Aruch. I was once giving a ride to Rabbi Zriel Orbach, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman's son, to a bris in Beitar. I was 10, 12 years ago. I had a car. Someone knew him, someone knew me, made the shidduch. So he gets into my car and he sees a little Likutei Tefillah. So he picks it up and he starts flipping through it. He says, my father wasn't so fond of Hasidim in general, but Breslov he loved. I said, why? He said, 2 reasons. Number one, they daven nates every morning. In Shai Chesed, if you go there to the Breslov Shul, what a beautiful Breslov Shul there. They daven nates every morning, but nates, Kemosh Tzarich, it's screaming and power. Not like, nates, I can barely open my eyes. Nates. And he loved that. And he said, also, they keep halacha. To him, to Rabbi Shlomo Zalman, the place like Adar, they keep halacha. Beautiful. Baruch Hashem. So that's another big klal in Breslov, is that whatever we're dealing with here, we can make drushes, we can make this and that, as long as you don't start making drushes and falling off the end of the earth. So I think just something that we can learn out from this is tefillas and bakashos, is that there's 2 types of tefillas. It's really coming from 2 time periods. There's a time when you're flying, you're good, you're doing well, you're learning well, things are knocking, your shalom Bais is good, everything's going well. And then there's times when mamish you're on the floor, you're like nothing's going, you feel like garbage, you feel like you're worthless. So during those times of goodness, tefillah, it's brought out in the psukim, is a lashon of mishpat. So a lot of times during those times that you're doing so well, a lot of times you have to do mishpat on yourself. You have to make sure that you balance yourself out and say, okay, things are going my way, but am I doing Hashem's will? Like right now. And you do yourself mishpat. That's a bechin of tefillah. And there's times also when you're mamish on the floor, everything's not going the way you want it, and it's bakashas. You just scream out, like the Rab Nachman has a Torah aye. You just cry out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu from the depths of your heart. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like bakashas. I think maybe the Rebbe is also alluding to, maybe there's both types of tefillas, but both of them are niskabel through the Torah, Rebbe says. And he continues now, V'achein v'achashivas shel Yisrael nis'ale v'nisroim mifnei kol mi shetzrichen. So your tefillas are going to get answered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's also grace and importance of Klal Yisrael that's going to be lifted up in front of everyone. Meaning, hein beruchani, hein begashmi. Whether it's spiritual chein, obviously in things between you and Hashem, or gashmias. You're going to go to the office and beg the guy to give you a job and this and that. When you're learning Torah and your tefillas are going up, everything is flowing. You have chein. And we're going to see that this whole Torah Aleph, is very, very much based on those 2 letters on chein. Nowadays, with all the sins that we've endured, so this chein, this grace and this importance, the true grace and importance of Klal Yisrael has fallen. You see, you go around in the world, who has like the spitz, cool, amazing, as cool as it can be. The Goyim have that chashivus and that coolness, like the Rebbe says in Sichas Aran somewhere. He says that ashirus, wealth. So Baruch Hashem, Yidden are blessed with wealth, but not like the Goyim. He says wherever you go, like billionaires even. Baruch Hashem, we don't have Elon Musks, people that are like beyond. So he says over here that the chen and chashivus, you look around, the runway shows our Goyim. So, but we really have the chen chashivus, but it's fallen. So he says that we have to lift up Chaim and Chashivas. Through learning Torah, our Chaim, our Chashivas lifts up. Torah nikres, because it brings from a Gemara, which is a pasuk, quoting a pasuk in Mishlei. The Torah is called in the pasuk in Mishlei, obviously in a mashal form, beloved hind, the beloved deer. The Yalas Chaim that lifts up and just like gives out charm, Chaim. And the Gemara learns a drush on that, that it lifts up Chaim on those who learn it. And through this, all tefillas and bakashos are going to be accepted. Now he has not yet explained that. If you're wondering what shaykhs does Torah lifting up Chaim have to do with tefillas going up, good question. He's not explained it yet, but he's set up, this is the structure of what it's going to be. And now we're going to go ahead and try to explain a little bit more how this works. So the Rebbe continues. Ki ish ha-Yisraeli tzorech tamid lestaker ba'aseichel shel kol davar. This is a very famous line. Yosef Karduner and many other Breslov singers even have songs that go through this whole line and this whole next few lines. A Yid, ish ha-Yisraeli, I'm not sure, and being that this is called officially a Chabura, I'd love to hear back from anyone's input why he calls it a Isha Yisraeli. From learning Likutei Moharan a few times, I don't know many places where the Rebbe uses this lashon of Isha Yisraeli. Almost sounds like an Israeli, no? I don't know if that's what he meant, but not getting involved in the machlokes now, shavot or not. So he says that a Yid, that's what he's referring to, has to always look into the intelligence, into the intellect, into the wisdom that is found in every single thing. Just read a few lines and go back and explain. And to connect himself to that wisdom that is within every single thing. So that this wisdom that is found within every single speck of reality will illuminate within him. And to use that thing to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let's stop here. Those are quite a few lines to chew through. In general, it sounds like he's saying that every single thing has wisdom, right? Al Pi Kabbalah, we're taught that this whole world is just Chaf Bais, Oisius of Aleph Bais, and this table is not a table, it's a Shin, Lam, and Ches, Nun, and it's just permeating with all sorts of Oisius. And that's how the Mekubalim, they look at your forehead and they see all sorts of stuff and they do all sorts of miracles because, obviously because of Tzidkus, I was once very randomly passing through Flatbush in a totally random way. I wasn't even supposed to be there. My sister calls me, I'm at some function, you want to just hang out a little bit? So I was like, cool. So I go into this party, and there's one of these mind readers, those mind reader guys, the mentalists, and I wasn't even supposed to be there. And so I wasn't on the guest list, no one, and I was there for 20 minutes just hanging out, and he's doing all sorts of tricks, oh, you broke your leg a week ago, how did you know? You went to Florida 2 weeks ago, how did you know? He's doing all sorts of cool tricks, and then he's for his finale, he's calls on me, and I'm like, uh-oh. So, all right, what do you want? He's like, here, go, over here. He points to the back bookshelf. He goes to go on the top shelf. I take down, there's a box. He says, open it up. I had to cut it open with tape. Again, we're all sitting there looking at him the whole time. Cut it open. I take it out. There's a wallet. He says, the wallet was closed. It was sealed. I had to open it up. Opened it up. He says, go inside. There's a paper inside. He says, read the paper. I open up the paper and it says my name. It says, Yoel's going to now announce that this guy broke his foot, that one was in Florida, and he goes through the whole thing. And I was like, that's impossible. That's crazy stuff. I wasn't even supposed to be there. It's not like you could say that, the owner, made up. That was. So Rav Loser Koenig, who was lucky to have a very big, close relationship with, he was living by us then, in Muncie and Briarwood. So I went over to him the next day or whatever, and I said to him, what is this? Kishiv? What's going on here? I was very... So he said his father of Gedalia lived in Yerushalayim, became Breslov. He actually knew a priest in the old city in Yerushalayim that knew Kisvei Arizal Baal Peh. Went to the Kisvei Arizal, which is quite an ordeal, Baal Peh. And he was able to tell you crazy stuff and do crazy things. He said he was full of tumah, full of disgust. He was used it all for disgusting things, and it was all putrid. So he said people know things, people could twist and could look into Oisias and figure things out, but what does that mean? It means nothing unless you first work on yourself, you become a tzaddik, and you have all the tikkun amidas, then you learn Kabbalah, and then you're able to actually use it to help people instead of take people's money and twist people. That's a different story. So the whole world is made up of Oisias. The whole world is made up of Oisias. That's LP Kabbalah. If you start learning science and things like that, you see that the whole world is made up of atoms, and that whole world of atoms defies the very structure that they study, and it's just wild and far out how it's made up of structures, but the structures don't even really make sense, how they even work. But they all have a rhyme and reason. So the whole world is made up of chachma, of seichel. That's how nowadays we have all these wondrous medicines, because you have people that are looking so deeply and doing experiments in electron microscopes and finding out how the atoms interact, and then how we can skew it and make good things. And we have Tylenol, we have all sorts of vaccines, if you believe in that stuff. But we have all sorts of crazy things that are changing the way we live very much, based on the chachma and seichel sheish b'chol davar. Now, that's, I guess, a very shitchias dika way of of the seichel sheish b'chol davar, but nonetheless there is seichel sheish b'chol davar. Now the first line that the Rebbe says over here is Kisha Yisraeli tzarich tamid lastaka b'seichel sheish b'chol davar. So just to make one more diak that, not to twist Shulchan Aruch, but a year ago or so we were learning the Torah of Reish Pei Bais, and the Torah of Reish Pei Bais, for people that are more familiar with Torah, with Bresav, everyone knows is the Torah of Azamra, which is the Torah that he speaks about looking at the good in people, and being that Bresav has a very big reputation of being happy and looking at the good and bringing people in. That's the Torah that everyone starts off with often. It says, that the first line of the Torah Reish Pei Beis of 282 is that you gotta judge every person favorably. Normally that means if you see the guy going into McDonald's, so you say he's going to use the bathroom, you see him digging into a cheeseburger, you say he has an ulcer and he's about to die, and if he's stuck on his nefashos, you make up all sorts of excuses for Dan L'Kaschos. The Rebbe's Dan L'Kaschos is totally different. He says that every person is filled with garbage. We take a look at another person, we see, look at him, he's battling, he's wasting time, he's oisfarf. We have all sorts of thoughts that we could do. He says, fine. And sometimes you're actually right. What is the guy doing? It's 11:30, he didn't daven shachar, he's smoking a cigarette, hanging out. Come on, get your act together. He says, fine. Granted, what is he doing? I don't know. But then dig deeper. And inside every single yid is a nekuda, a point, that he's what a lot of the Hasidic Sfarim call a pintel yid, where he's beautiful, he's pure. He's just a little child that just wants to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, and even if you dig down and you find that little point, you're going to maybe find dirt around that point already and say, yeah, he's not such an innocent guy anymore. Dig deeper. You'll always find, dig deep. You find a little point that's mamish illuminated. When you see it, it illuminates. And he says to do that within yourself, because the Mishnah says, Dan es kol adam the kafsvas. Kol adam means also yourself. And put yourself also onto this scale of good, weigh yourself down to good, and through that, you could bring people and yourself back to tshuva. So when I was learning this Torah, this is the way I think you could learn the Likutei Moharan, at least based on what we said before, is that the Mishnah doesn't say these words. The Mishnah says, have they done as kol adam l'kavschos? Now I was learning with an Israeli in Uman last year this Torah, and when I had this I asked him, because I wanted to get corroboration from someone that actually grew up speaking Hebrew. I know Hebrew pretty well, but not perfect. I said, what's the difference between havei and tzarich? So I said, I think that havei is like you should, and tzarich is you got to, you have to. So he said, yeah, nachon, you're right. So I said, so what is the Rebbe teaching us here? The Rebbe changes it. Every nuance of Reb Nachman is calculated. So he's saying here is that the Mishnah says you should. And obviously if you learn halacha, there's even places that you shouldn't. If the guy's mamash a known Russia, you don't have to go anymore and start making up, drake up stories that he's doing something good. He's a known Mefaresia. He's not religious. You could assume that he's doing something wrong. Havei, you should. But over here, with the Rebbe, he's talking about when I look up, when I eyes look at another person, I have to judge him favorably. You know why? Because every single second that I look, I'm judging. It's a metzius. Our eyes and our brains are constantly making judgments. Is that guy a good guy? Is he not such a good guy? Am I better than him? Am I lower than him? And we're doing that all day. So the Rebbe says the only way that you're going to be able to deal with that and not allow it to kind of naturally take you into all the rut of our low self-esteem and our Yetzer Haras and all these things, and just knock people down, knock ourselves down. Oh, you see, you messed up again. Oh, you see, you messed up again. I just saw an amazing shot from the Tiferes Yisrael, Yachin, on Pirkei Avos. It says in the Mishnah on Pirkei Avos, it says, Kosher lichos v'noach lirtzai. It's a guy that's very hard to get him angry, but it's very easy to appease him. He's a chassid. The Tiferes Yisrael points out, Kosher lichos means that it's hard, but you can get him angry. And he says every single human being gets angry. I thought that was an amazing thing, just to recognize that every tzaddik yesod olam gets angry. Mamash, he loses himself. And that's a chizuk. But the difference between a tzaddik and a regular person is that a tzaddik loses himself, gets angry, and he's like, wow, I just got angry. Hashem, oy, do tshuva, come back. We get angry like, oh, you see, I told you you're an oisvarf. Now you're even worse. Now we get depressed and weiter and weiter and weiter. So we sometimes knock ourselves down and everything. The Rebbe is saying this is happening all the time. We're constantly judging. The whole world inside of us is judging other people, ourselves. Therefore, you have to judge the kapsulas. Now, coming back to Aleph, I think you could maybe say the same thing over here. Is that a yid has to always look at the seichel shel kol davar because we are always looking at the world, right? Our eyes and the mind's eye is constantly looking at life. It's constantly looking at the world to connect it now here to Adar a little bit, but I think the Nekuda brings it out very well. I was thinking, Misha Nichnas Adar, we still have a couple of days left, and some Mepharshim say that the Simcha keeps going until Nisan, and some until Misha Nichnas Av Matim, the Simcha, you have to keep going, and then obviously you have the Chassidim Shab Matim over B'Simcha, so Baruch Hashem, Mitzvah Gedel Yis Simcha Tamid. But Misha Nichnas Adar, Matim Simcha, if you enter into Adar, the letters Adar, Aleph, Daled, Reish, go inside. Now every letter in the Hebrew alphabet has a word. Right? Thank you very much. In the letters of Adar is an Aleph, which the middle letter is Lamed. You have a Daled, which the middle letter is a Lamed. And you have a Reish, which the middle letter is a Yud. If you put those together, it's a Lamed Lamed Yud, which equals 70. But you know, Purim, Nichnas Yain, Yotzasoy, everything's about the Ayin, the 70. It's Gevaldik. Nichnas Adar, if you go into Adar, Marbim Simcha, that's where the Simcha is found. But I think it's something deeper. It struck me that Ayin, which we know is Soid, which is Yayin, you know, it's such a secret thing, but the eyeball, Ayin 70, is the least secretive thing. It's actually the most superficial thing that we have. Even the nose, when it smells, it gets like nostalgic. The eyes are like super superficial. Like I look and I'm like, that guy, you know. And what do you see? You just see the external. Oh, look, his collar's up. Like you don't see anything. And that's the eye. So why is the eye that which is connecting over here in the gematria to Said, secret? So it shocked me that Taka, if you take your eyes and you use them for looking superficially at everything, that's all you'll see. You're right. But if you take your eyeball and you see that I'm seeing literally nothing. Look at the human body. I mean, oh look, a hand, you know, like maybe like a couple of thousand years ago, they're like, oh, it's a hand, you know. Now, like if you learn biology, like a hand, it's like trillions of cells and bones and veins, and there's crazy stuff going on inside this hand. Now, when I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's a hand, you know. But we know that there's tons more. The same thing with a person, and what the Rebbe is saying here, that every single thing, and like I think the Maral says, that thing is davar, is dibor, every single thing is pnimius. There's so much more going on to the person and to a happening and to everything that's going on. And when your eye recognizes that it's just seeing the surface, then your eye is opening you up to the portal of seeing that every single thing that you see is the story of infinite depths. Everything. And that may be over here that the Rebbe is saying that we have to look at every single thing and see what it's really telling us. The next line that the Rebbe said was to connect ourselves to the seichel and the chachma. So now if you read these three lines, a lot of times it almost seems repetitive. A lot of the Torah the Rebbe just like repeats, and like it seems so repetitive sometimes. But I found that there's something incredible here. The first line, guys, turn off your ringers. The first line, the Rebbe says that you have to look at the seichel shekol davar. Then he says you have to connect yourself, you have to bind yourself to the chachma and the seichel. And then he says, because then it's going to illuminate the seichel. So now right over here, to connect yourself, he threw in, almost like a monkey wrench, he threw in the chachma. Now, that we're speaking about seichel, so, you know, if you learn Rav Nachman's Svarim, Sichas Ran especially, the Rebbe speaks a lot about philosophy and things like that, and that wasn't his path. His path wasn't to like go and use your intellect and start intellectualizing and philosophizing about things. He says that his path is the path of Ashrei Tamimi Derech Halacha M'sas Hashem, Na'aseh V'nishma. The Eibishter says, he gave us a Torah. We have Moshe Rabbeinu and all the tzaddikim that came from Moshe Rabbeinu. When you receive from your Rebbe, your mom is receiving straight from Moshe Rabbeinu. Go, you receive from your parents some Yiddishkeit. Go in these ways. Obviously, there's a Torah, I forget which Torah is, the only other place where the Rebbe says mitzvah gedola to do something is mitzvah gedola l'chadedes haseichel. It's a big mitzvah to sharpen your mind. So the Rebbe is not telling you to be dumb. The Rebbe is not telling you to be a fool, a naive, ignoramus. He's telling you, go simply follow the path of Hashem and then use all of your brain power, as much as you physically can, as much as the limitations of your mind allow you to understand what you can understand. So over here, I think maybe the Rebbe is throwing in this line of Chachma. Why? Because Chachma is brought down in many svarim is Koyach Ma. It's a unification of two words of Koyach Ma, the strength of the power of Ma. What is Ma? Ma is one of the shemas of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yud Kei Vav Kei Mil Alfin, but it's Ma Chayinu Mekechenu. It's a bechina of bittul, of utter bittul. It's basically saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, what do I have? I have nothing. I can't breathe. I can't lift my arms. I have nothing without you, Hashem. So I think what the Rebbe is throwing in over here is that when we're speaking here about seichel. So we're going to start looking into all the things that are going around. And the Rebbe says in other Torahs not to make that drive you crazy. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending you simanim all the time. And there's a famous slew of books from Rav Arish, which he bases on Rav Nachman, which Rav Nachman bases on the Arizal, which Arizal bases on, I think, even earlier sources, going back to David HaMelech, where they speak about Natsan HaNavi comes to David and says, what are you doing? If there's a guy that has 1,000 sheep and he goes steals one sheep from this poor guy, that's all he has, what would you do? He says, I would kill him. So that's you. You take the one wife this guy has. He has 1,000 wives. Why do you need this one wife? So the tzaddikim throughout the generations, and the way Rav Nachman brings it down, is that the judgment, a din, has to pass a court case up in Pamaya Shalmala, in the upper world. Every single being has to agree that the judgment should be passed. So upstairs they see all what's going on and they all agree, this guy did something wrong, give him a patch. But he says, even the people in this world get asked. And he says, not only the people in this world get asked, but even you get asked. So now which guy in his right mind, if they ask him, yo, you just missed Shachris, we need to give you a $250 parking ticket. Do you agree? Do you know how late I was up last night? I was doing a mitzvah of dancing at a chassan. Hashem, no. I don't deserve that punishment. Oh, okay. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is smart. He knows that everyone's going to tie into that. We're a bunch of lawyers, Baruch Hashem, and doctors, if we're zeicha. He says, I'm going to give it to you in a movie. I'll give it to you in a video of some other guy. But that guy, when you pass judgment on him, is really you. All right? I once had this story that Mom was like, I lived it. I came out of the bathroom in Mishkan Esther in Yerushalayim, and they were just starting Mincha Gedola on Friday, so I wasn't davening with them. And I'm sitting there saying, Asher Yotzar, and I see this kid davening Shemir Esrei. He just started Shemir Esrei. He's like a fresh bar mitzvah bacher, and he's like with all his might, but he's like this. He's like spacing out to every corner of the Bais Medrash, like he's chuckling, but he's like, his mind is in 1,000 different places. And I'm like, come on, that's davening Shemir Esrei. What's all the chuckling about? And then all of a sudden I hear the words, it's like, oh, that was me. Oh, I was the one spacing out, not him. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows you everything in a video. He's showing you your. So Rav Arish has his book that everything in Shalom Bais is based on this. Your wife is telling you and doing all these things. All your kids are just telling you, and Avada is givaldige things. And you could learn a lot, and you could grow a lot, and you could grow. And I once asked Rav Koenig, I said, I started reading this, I started holding by it, like it's a little intense, like every single thing is me, it's judgment against me. He's like, he said, chill out, basically, like relax, like, yes, Avada, but the Rebbe says, I think in Torah Nun something, he says that every single thing is signs, everything is seichel sheish b'chol davar, but you have to chill out sometimes, you have to relax, you have to make sure that you don't like go crazy to find the seichel sheish b'chol davar. But over here the Rebbe is saying, I think, one nekuda, sorry we're not getting so far, but that l'kasher atzmei l'seichel sheish b'chol davar, to connect yourself, there's one level of of understanding Chachma. Look, try to find Seichel, to understand it, to see it, it's wisdom, it's amazing, it's wow. But how do you bind yourself to something? How do you connect yourself to something in the way of binding? The only way to do that is through bittul. The only way to do that is through, if you allow your entire being into that Seichel, that's the only way. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says that you should know you should think about, I don't know the exact lesson, 3 things, and you won't come to sin. And one of the things is dam mi'ayin basa mitipa srucha. You should remember where you came from a putrid drop of zera. What are you? You're a cell. So at once I had this question. Now, if it was based on Baruch Hashem, we were going to learn Hilchos Nida, and we watched this video of the journey of the zera that goes through. There's 300 million cells, and they go through a journey that almost all of them get killed, destroyed, killed from different acids and everything, and it finally gets to the place of where it could make life, it's the egg, and there's only like 10 cells left. And even those 10 cells, 9 of them gets thrown out, 1 of them come into the cell, into the egg, and become the miracle of life. And so, I came from that cell. I came from the cell that made it out of the 300 million. So why am I saying, I should know where I came from? Srucha. Srucha means putrid. It means, in Yiddish, I think, fadarbin. I don't know, srucha, nachon? It's putrid. So that was the one cell. I came from the one cell that didn't rot. So why is the Mishnah telling me srucha? That I came from, So it struck me from that like illustration that I saw, is that the cell, that one cell out of 300 million, it's hard to imagine, when it gets in, it actually goes through the walls to the egg, and it's in there. Now that cell obviously doesn't have much of a brain, but the brain of Hashem is in that cell and saying, wow, I made it. I'm the champion. I did it. I'm it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells it, nice. There's one more thing that you got to do. It's like, what? You know what I just went through? I just made it. He's like, take your cellular walls and dissolve them. What? That's the thing that's holding me. I am a cell. He's like, no. Let the walls dissolve. Trust me. And the cell then does that. And at that second, the absolute incomprehensible miracle of life happens. When that wall is mevatel, is rots itself, it morphs and merges and fuses with the egg to create me, to create life. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be saying in the Mishnah over here in Pirkei Avos a different idea. Da me'ayin basa, remember where you came from. Mitipa srucha, that within the very makeup of every single yid, we are bittul. Our makeup is bittul. And so, every single yid has this koach of bittul. And that koach to just basically take ourselves, and when and if we find something that's beautiful and it's amazing, to try to melt ourselves away into it, and that will give us the kesher to it. Then the Rebbe said, so that the seichel, this wisdom, this intellect, illuminates within you, to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through this thing. Amazing line over here, just to point out, is that, without mentioning any names, where I grew up and went to yeshivas, many of them were from the bent, like, Yiddishkeit is serious, Yiddishkeit is intense, Yiddishkeit is heavy, and if you're not serious, you're not intense, and you're not heavy, and you're not miserable, I don't even know what you are. You're Pasha not a Yid. Here the Rebbe is saying, Kirvas Hashem is light. If you're not light, then you're probably not coming close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It doesn't mean that we're all going to be illuminated at all times, but there should be an illumination that comes out from Kirvas Hashem, from our avodah, that illuminates. And when we're illuminated, that's when we're close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Rebbe continues, the Rebbe says that the intellect is a tremendous light. It illuminates us. It illuminates all of our pathways, all of our ways that we need to go on. Chochmas Adam Tair Panav. The wisdom of man illuminates his face. When we need to see where we're going, light helps us. You're going at night in the forest, you have no idea where you're going. You can almost stand there like this, feeling around. All of a sudden the daylight comes, you see where you're going, it's amazing. You can fly, you can go. So this is saying the wisdom that we find, that we connect ourselves, this is a illumination for our pathways. So now the Rebbe is going to bring in, for the first time, we've got a few more minutes, but it's Baruch Hashem, Baruch Sheiganu to the first time that the Rebbe uses the most, probably, I don't have one of those Google searches, the most mentioned word in the Likutei Moharan by far, V'zeh Bechinas Yaakov. Bechinas. Now, if people are not so familiar with the word Bechinas, it's like, what does that mean? And I like to say that it means, speak to any 15-year-old nowadays, and like your conversation is like going to be filled with the word like, because it's like we have to like kind of understand like what we're talking about. What is the word like, and why are they using it so much? Because they're trying to like compare everything, and they don't have everything super clear, so everything is like kind of this and that. But the word like is taking this table is like it takes things and compares it and helps you to understand them. Now over here in the Likutei Moharan, it's not because the Rebbe didn't have clarity. It's because the ideas that he's explaining are so lofty and sometimes so foreign to us, and he's trying to bring this into us that he needs to use all sorts of Torahs and comparisons to understand it. And that's the word Bechina is going to be used many times. Right now the Rebbe is going to go through like 20 Bechinas. And it's basically kind of mathematical in a certain way. A plus B equals C, it follows, it's logical, so we'll just hold cup for a little bit here. Zebechinas Yaakov, this is an element of Yaakov, an aspect of Yaakov, as the art scroll in Breslov translates it. Ki Yaakov zachal b'chora. Ki Yaakov was zeichet to the b'chora. He bought the b'chora. He merited to have the firstborn. Shu reishis, firstborn, even though he wasn't the first actual born, but he got the reishis, right? Shu b'chinas chachma. So Yaakov is now connected to b'chora, which is an idea of reishis, and that reishis is the idea of chachma. So it's basically A to B to C to D, and therefore A and D connect. The pasuk there seems to connect the two ideas. If you dig deeper into the psukim, you could see mamish deeper and amazing things. I remember being once by a Sim Likutei Moharan and Meir Sharim, and Rabbi Yaakov Meir Schechter, as Zangizut Stark, was there, and he was speaking. And when he speaks, it's like Kleis Nefesh. He's like as if he's about to like fly up to like expire. And he was speaking, and he said there were Yidden. I don't know if he meant himself or not. Sometimes tzaddikim say that. But he said there were Yidden that were in the Kollel many years ago, and they decided that they were going to learn the Likutei Moharan, and they were going to learn a Be'in, but not Be'in like what we're doing. They're going to learn a Be'in kacha, like this. Every time the Rebbe says a pasuk in Mishlei, Ayelas Ahavim Yalas Chaim, stop. Take out Mishlei, learn the entire parak with all the Mefarshim. Next, Malachin Alamda, Erevin and Dalet Bais, learn the entire daf with Mefarshim. And he said they went through Torahs and Torahs of the Likutei Moharan like that. It must have taken them years upon years. Every Zayar, the whole daf with the Mefarshim. He said, and he was the awe that they had from learning the Likutei Moharan like that, seeing how even the pasuk that the Rebbe alludes to, the whole parak has to do with the whole Torah is all unified. He said it was something like unimaginable. But for time's brevity's sake, we're not going to do that, and we're just going to keep going. But the idea over here, Reish is Chachma. If you look in the pasuk and learn them first and everything, you can see probably unbelievable things. But the most simple Hasidic shot is Reish is Chachma, that Reishis and Chachma are connected. So now if we go backwards, we go Reishis to Chachma, to Bechira, to Yaakov. So Yaakov is Chachma. The Zebechinas is going to be another element of this. Zebechinas, where am I holding? Yeah, the Yaakveni Zeh Pa'amayim. The pasuk says that Esav tells Yaakov when he stole the brachas. He says you tricked me. You outsmarted me twice. So you see, outsmarted Yaakov and Chachma. So he brought A, B, C, D from Yaakov to Chachma. Now with one pasuk he brings it again to unify them. I don't know why he had to bring it again. There's what to learn, but I don't have shot necessarily in that. This is an element of the sun. The light of the tzaddikim is illuminated and keeps going until the day is bright. So now we're just going to see a few more lines. This is an element of ches, Chachma and seichel is that which gives life. The intellect gives life to the thing. You see in this pasuk that wisdom is that which gives life. We were saying before that if you look inside everything, you find wisdom. So we're like, wow, it's cool. In everything that is, there's wisdom. He's like, no, the wisdom is that which is giving it life. So the wisdom is the chachma, and that's what's giving his life. And this is what we're going to pivot on, whoever gives the shiur next week. Being that the aura, the light of the intellect is so huge, it's impossible to even get it, only through nun. Which is an element of malchus. The lesson of yinon is the lesson of malchus. So we're going to get to this next week, that the aura of light of seichel is almost like an Ein Sof. When you look up at the sun, there's supposed to be a partial solar eclipse in a couple of days. You look up at that sun, it's amazing. It's gewaldig. It burn your retinas out because it's too light. What do you have to do? You have to get those specialized glasses that let you to see it, but healthy. So he's saying over here is that also the chachma, the chias davar is amazing. You have to have, that's a chias, a ches. You have to have the nun, the malchus, which you're going to see what it means, to damper it, so that you can actually properly see it and take it all in. Hashem yizakenu yasher koyach. Zakra varu.